Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining our Consulting 101 webinar. My name is Linda Bugg from the Campus Recruiting Team. Before we get started, I wanted to share some logistics for the evening. There will be a chance for Q&A at the end of the presentation, so please use the chat tool at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. Send your questions to Caroline Viola at any time during the presentation. You'll see Caroline's name at the top of the screen. With that, we'll go ahead and get started. I'll hand it over to our presenters, Andrew and Jen. They will introduce themselves and lead us through the Consulting 101 webinar. Andrew?
Hey folks, so I'm Andrew. I live in New York City. I was raised in Los Angeles. I've been with Kearney for about 2 years now. Graduated from Penn. You guys can read the slide, I guess, on your own. But have been doing a handful of different things at Kearney. I think the biggest thing about Kearney for me was the people. It's why I joined, and really the reason why I've stayed over the past 2 years. So happy to start giving you guys some insight into what it's like working here and working with all the awesome people that have kept me here. So I'll hand it off to Jen.
Awesome, thank you so much. Hi everyone, my name is Jen. I'm a senior analyst with our strategic operations practice, specifically in the advanced analytics tower. I grew up in New Jersey, but right now I'm based out of Chicago, and that's also where I call home. My background is in economics. I got my BA from the University of Chicago in 2018 and rejoined the firm full-time after my summer internship as an analyst as well in July 2018. So it's been a little under 2 years. I enjoy dancing, I enjoy peer mentoring, and also traveling, of course, on my time off. And I'm super excited to share some insights about consulting with all of you. And again, echoing Andrew, feel free to ask us any questions, really hoping that this will be a really informative and as well as interactive session for everyone. Okay, so I think we can get started. So I think when we talk about what it means to be a consultant or what it means to work in consulting, I think the most typical answer people will give you is that there is no typical answer, there is no typical day and whatnot. But there is something that I think is a common thread of being a consultant, and that's working in teams. We are always working in teams comprised of anywhere between 3 to 4 consultants, maybe a little more, maybe a little less than that. But we always have that team support, both physically, literally, as well as I think emotionally as well, whenever we're working on projects together. And 3 to 4 consultants on a team could be a manager, an associate, 1 to 2 business analysts working together on a work stream. There could be several work streams ongoing at the same client at one time, but you really do stick with your your work stream unit, and those are the people that you work most closely with on a day-to-day basis. So not only that, but you really do get a chance to gain exposure in a bunch of different industries, functions, service areas in a very short amount of time. Not only are your team in that compact 3 to 4 person range, but your project are always never too long, typically never too long. So you always are switching it up constantly in terms of the experience that you're gaining. And even if you come into a project with very little experience or knowledge about the industry that you're in, you often come out of it becoming almost an expert in that subject matter. And a couple months down the line, there could be people coming to you for advice and your experience and your expertise, even as an analyst. So it's never too early to start developing that expert knowledge. And it definitely is a very quick learning process in consulting. So I think the last call out on this page, which I think is actually a really invaluable piece of being a consultant, is that you definitely have this opportunity to work with a lot of industry leaders, a lot of C-suite executives at these different companies that we're working with. I mean, not only, I think, external leaders, but also internal leaders as well. Kearney also has a lot of, thought leaders in the different fields that, our partners or principals might be experts in. So you often get to see how these leaders, external and internal, how they think, how they process. Sitting in a meeting with them, even if you don't interact with them directly, it's often a great experience just being able to see what kind of questions they ask, what are the different areas that they're interested in, what is their thought process, how are they processing the information that's being displayed, and what are their reactions to it. So not only do you have to learn from them and their expertise, but those close working relationships also show you a lot about what these leaders are thinking as well. And I've experienced this firsthand on my first project. I don't want to even say like a month into my project as a brand new analyst at Kearney. I was sitting in a meeting with a chief transformation officer at a very large aerospace and automotive manufacturer. So I knew nothing about aerospace and automotive, and I also was very intimidated by this woman who was clearly very savvy, but even just the experience of hearing the issues and the problems that she has top of mind was really enlightening and really showed me kind of like the next level of what leaders are thinking about in their firms. So I think, Andrew, I'd love if you jump in, but if not, I think we're ready to move to the next page.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. So I think one piece that Jen talked on that we can sort of, I'd like to expand on here is variety. I think it's one of the things that really attracted me to management consulting, and in Kearney in particular. Linda, you can go ahead and flip to 6. Here you can sort of see Kearney does plenty of work in, sort of every industry you could imagine. We certainly have a reputation and a deep, rich history in operations, supply chain, and procurement. But these days our firm has grown and has gone large enough that we've really developed chops in sort of all of these things that you can see here on this slide. Personally, I've been all over the place. I've been in aerospace and defense. I've been in consumer goods. I've been in print and media, transportation and logistics, all over the place, especially places I never thought I would ever be before. So I think one of the things that really has been awesome about Kearney is constantly getting to do new things. I'm the type of person that gets distracted if I feel like I'm doing the same task over and over again. And I never want to feel like I'm not learning something new. And consulting, and certainly Kearney, I think really lends itself well to folks that want to continually learn or constantly challenge themselves with new problems and try to learn new things. For me, the teams aspect that Jen was talking about earlier is actually one of the biggest ways in which I find myself challenged. We're constantly working with new people at AT Kearney. And then at the end of the day, you find yourself embedded in client teams where you're working with stakeholders, the people that are really asking for your help and need your support. Learning how to work with them, understand what their priorities, what their concerns are, their point of view, and then being able to manage that and integrate that into your work, I think is one of the most exciting parts of my job. Constantly getting to meet new people and basically figure out what makes them tick and how to help them solve their problems, and moreover, solve their problems going forward, has been really gratifying, and I think has really brought me a lot of satisfaction in my own job. So, I mean, you can read this slide. I won't talk about every single checkerboard here, but I think the point is we have tons of different types of work. So if you're interested in becoming a generalist and don't necessarily know where you want to go long term for your career, consulting is a great option. It really lets you sort of dip your feet in a couple different areas and really get to know different industries as well as different types of work. I know me, I've been here for 2 years and I still have no idea where I'm going to end up in 5 years. And I think that's a mentality that's actually quite embraced at Kearney. And I think lots of folks here are here to help you learn what excites you and what would make a really gratifying career. So I think that's it for this page. I forget what's next after this, Linda. Oh, right. Okay, so these are little case studies. I am the light bulb and Jen are the hands. So this is one of my first projects out of undergrad. I was working for a newspaper company. They owned about 300 local newspapers across the United States. I was helping them out with their top line strategy piece of the project, which was very, I don't know, kind of consultant, typical, but very, high impact and pie in the sky. So, newspapers make money in two main ways. One is selling newspapers, but the other one is selling advertisement space in their publications or on their website to advertisers. So I had two main pieces of work. One was, who are the customers that are most valuable, right? Who end up paying the most money over their entire lives, and also are the cheapest to acquire. And how do we shift our, a strategy to target those people? And then the other piece was about advertising. So who sells, buys most of the advertising from our papers? And then I got to do this fun analysis where, you have 300 different newspapers. A Home Depot, for example, might be buying advertising space from 200 out of the 300 newspapers, but has no idea that they're linked in any way. So how can we bring Home Depot, for example, a more enticing offering that could both boost their impact in the audience, more impressions, more traffic to their website or to their stores, as well as maximize cost savings, and then the top line, right? So making sure that all the papers aren't competing against each other. For Home Depot, we're all on the same team, but also bringing them to a package. Hey, rather than having to go to each of, one of 200 times, you can just talk to me. I'll sell you advertising space in all 200 of the papers. So that was an awesome project. I was working with the CEO, CRO, COO, CFO constantly, every day. So tons of exposure. I remember my first day I walked in that project and I sat down with the CEO, like one-on-one, and I was like, how is Kearney trusting me to do this? There is no way that this is going to go well. But it's in those moments that you really learn the most. And I remember walking out of that meeting feeling like $1 million. I don't know that my manager thought the same thing, but I know that I had learned tons just in that one interaction, and that was immensely valuable for my career. So that's enough about my case study. I'll hand it up to you, Jen.
I don't know how I can top that, but moving over to the right side of the page. So this is a sourcing as well as a product teardown project that I did with a global consumer goods brand. And this particular brand, I'm sure everybody has seen their products, probably own one or two of their products, but they make anything from hair dryers, hair curlers, to kettles and toaster ovens, shavers, trimmers, all that stuff. So it was definitely a very relatable product. Like, it was something that I could see, I could hold, I could relate to on a day-to-day basis in just my personal life as well. So this is quite a change from my first project, which was, as I mentioned earlier, aerospace and automotive, which is a little more out there. Everyone has a car maybe, but this was definitely like a hands-on personal product that I could relate to. And the issue that we were brought in to help this client with is definitely decreasing margins over time. Not only do these consumer products, not only are they very competitive in the market, you can think of a bunch of different brands that all produce, relatively kind of the same product. But there's a lot of pressure from these major retailers and wholesalers, Amazon, Walmart, all Lowe's, Home Depot, Macy's, etc., who not only expect, companies like our client to improve their efficiency and productivity and drive down costs, in a very steady percentage over time, but it gets more and more competitive to maintain shelf space, maintain even like a web listing for their products. So it was definitely a critical time for our client to be able to find some very strategic partners, very strategic suppliers in the global market in order to maintain their competitiveness. And not only that, but find new innovative ways. So rather than just going to a supplier and saying, hey, can you give me a discount, or, you know, like, let's talk about how we can make this product more efficiently, we actually worked with an internal Kearney arm, which is called Pearl Labs, and they're based in Chicago. They're almost like a startup within Kearney. And what they helped us do was really do a product teardown, where we took, I want to say, 40 to 50 of our clients' products and tore them down to their nuts and bolts. We like sawed all these hair dryers open to see exactly what was on the inside, weighed every nut and bolt to see how much material was going into it. You know, was it the plastic, the coloring, was it painted on after, or was the color already included in the resin? All these different aspects. And we also took, I want to say, 70 to 90 direct competitor products and did the same process with them to see what are some of the things that our competitors are doing that are really great, and what are some of the inspirations that we can lift from those products, but also what are the things that they're not doing so hot and things that we can know to avoid maybe later on. So not only was this a collaboration between our Kearney Pro Labs team, but it was also really working in close proximity and close quarters with our client's R&D team, quality team, because, you know, we can change maybe the length of a handle on a hair curler or a hair dryer, or we can decrease the amount of plastic that we use in a hair dryer, but how does that affect quality? You know, at the end of the day, any changes that we have to make would have to be seamless with no quality compromises. At the end of the day, the consumer that gets the product, you know, shipped to them or buys the product in a store, they can't notice that anything's different. And that was also a major hurdle that we had to go through as well. So not only was this project really interesting because I saw the engineering and design aspects of it, but we ended up actually traveling internationally, I want to say 2 to 3 times during this project to go to Asia. We went to Hong Kong to go visit with suppliers directly and show them what some of our ideas were. So at the end of the day, it wasn't really just a straight procurement or sourcing project. It was all these other bits and pieces that we collaborated with all these different parties on, and we were able to bring these very strategic, very well thought out ideas to these suppliers and ask for their collaboration in kind of making it happen. So it was definitely a very interesting project, and I'm, like, similar to Andrew, very surprised that they put so much responsibility on an analyst, but I think that also goes to show that there are a lot of opportunities to both step up, I think, in consulting, kind of, you know, the opportunity is what you make of it, and that if you are willing to and you want to and you desire to do something, take on more responsibility, it's always there for you, and you know, it really is what you make of it at the end of the day. I think that brings us to our Q&A.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thank you, Andrew and Jen, for sharing your experience and information about the firm. It's really informative. So next, I'd like to introduce Kate, one of our business analysts. Kate is going to lead our panel discussion and ask Andrew and Jen a series of questions about more about their experience with Kearney. But Kate, can you share a little background about a little information about your background before starting the panel session?
Sure. Hi, I'm Kate Grazel. I'm a BA out of the Chicago office, and I've been with the firm for about 9 months now. Prior to coming to the firm, I graduated from Penn State with a major in supply chain management and a minor in information systems management. I'm from Pittsburgh, and I'm currently there now since we're all working at home. But yeah, like I said, I'm from Chicago, and I'm a BA, so let's get this started. Jen, I'm going to start with you. Why did you choose to pursue consulting?
So I think this kind of echoes back to something that Andrew mentioned when we were going through all the different industry areas and capabilities at Kearney. And I think one of the main reasons, there are quite a few, but one of the main reasons was I really wasn't sure exactly what it is that I wanted to do or what I wanted to specialize in. And I knew that, you know, the fast-paced working nature of consulting would allow me to experiment very quickly, get a lot of hands-on experience in different industry areas and function areas as well in a very short amount of time. So that was, I think, the main motivation for why I wanted to do consulting, or why I wanted to pursue a career in consulting. But there are also aspects such as like the team aspect, getting to work on those interpersonal relationship skills and those like communication skills as well, that really drove me to want to maybe step outside my comfort zone a little bit, and really experience kind of consulting hands-on.
Okay, well, going off of that, kind of wraps into that question. Andrew, I know earlier you said people was one of the main reasons you chose Kearney. Can you give me another couple of reasons why you felt like Kearney was the best fit?
Yeah, so I think at the end of the day, I remember it came down to a couple, like, I think I had like a few offers in hand, and I was sort of, you know, assessing them all. They were all a little bit different. I remember thinking to myself, which offer feels most like home? After each of my Kearney interviews, I actually remember walking away thinking like, wow, that seems like the type of person I'd really like to go have drinks with after work or something like that. And I really felt like I had bonded with all of my interviewers and all the folks that I had spoken to at Kearney while I was going through the process. And I didn't quite feel that same level of, I don't know, familiarity and comfort with the other firms with which I had been interviewing. So I think it's kind of one of the intangible things that you can't really measure, but it was really the people. I think another piece of it, hey, Jen and Linda, I'm hearing an echo. Would you guys go on mute, please? Another piece of it for me was Kearney's history being so focused in supply chain operations and logistics. I actually found that to be very respectable and powerful. I actually think that if a player is trying to attain and sustain competitive advantage in a marketplace, one of the most effective and surefire ways to do that is having the best cost structure and just being the best operator. And so I thought that Kearney's, I don't know, historic focus and sort of reputation was actually a really strong one and really appealing to me. Although I know operations isn't like the sexiest thing ever to most people. So that's one piece. I think, and then the last was through the process at Kearney. I was talking with the Kearney Proud Network, which at the time was Gala, and they were really sure to sort of foster my applicants throughout the process, my candidacy throughout the process, and make sure like I got my questions answered about what it's like to be out at AT Kearney and what it's like to be a consultant who's gay and stuff like that. And that's something that was actually quite distinctive of AT Kearney. I know it's a little bit of an edge case for, I don't know, the Gen Pop, but to me, it really spoke to Kearney's values of diversity, but also just the personality, I don't know, the personal nature of making sure that people are taken care of and being responsive and also respectful at the same time. Because as I'm sure many of you could realize, that's a delicate balance to strike as a potential employer with candidates, right? And they handled it very well, and I was quite impressed with that. That was my experience. Thanks, Pete.
That's great. Thank you. Going off of that, Jen, what's kept you at Kearney so far?
Oh wow, it sounds so cheesy, but like I want to say the people, but expanding upon that a little more, it's not only the people, but also I think the level of caring or kindness or really I think the people-centric, you know, employee-oriented way that a lot of Kearney operates. And a lot of the times, I think you could feel like you're getting lost kind of like as a cog in the wheel or of a large company or something like that. But I feel at Kearney that what's really kept me here is always feeling like I have a voice, that even if I don't raise, an issue or a question right away, that, the leadership is always considering what their employees are feeling and how decisions affect everyone a little differently, and how to really maximize the happiness of everybody. There really is a lot of emphasis on having sustainable work-life balance. We have so many different programs for that. And that's also something I think that I didn't mention earlier, but something that really drove me to Kearney as well, is that, I knew that a firm with so many programs, like Pathway to Parents or the different LOA or, all those different secondments, externship opportunities, that they would only have those opportunities if they really cared about, their employees and what their employees' passions and interests and desires are. So I think that not only has that drawn me to Kearney, but it's definitely also something that has kept me here in the long run. I'm just echoing Andrew, if everyone could go on mute. I think there's a bit of background noise echoing.
Okay, I think we're good to go, maybe? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
Yeah, I definitely resonate with that. Being a business analyst and being in an entry-level position, I feel like all my opinions still are heard and count. People definitely take them to heart, and I think that's a huge thing that I appreciate at Kearney. Andrew, going off of your interview process, you felt Kearney it stood out to you, but what other things really made Kearney different from you compared to other firms that you were at?
Yeah, so I touched first on the reputation, which I think is a big distinguisher within the world of consulting, so I won't harp on that. I think one piece that sort of gets swept under the rug is that Kearney teams are always comprised partially of client counterparts. A lot of our competitors create teams and show up to a client site, and it's, a bunch. You can imagine like 5 Kearney consultants walking in and doing a whole bunch of work and not talking to anyone else. Those deliverables tend not to be enacted upon. They tend not to be very good. People don't really believe the recommendations very well. Kearney is very different in that if I'm on a project team, I have a couple people at the client that I'm working with day in, day out. At the end of the day, they're the experts. They've been working there way longer than I have in most cases. They know the industry much better than I do. And so being deeply embedded with the client during this work was something that I honestly needed to have. I couldn't imagine being that guy to show up and, talk a big talk, never talk to the client stakeholders, and then give a final presentation and realize that like half of our underlying assumptions aren't even ready to be agreed upon by the CEO. So that's one thing that I really appreciate about Kearney. It also plays into that, the psychological and communication challenge of the whole thing, right? Constantly needing to get buy-in from the client, not to be understated. But Kearney is really good at making sure that we do that the right way, and that we really are partners with our clients, not telling them what to do and then leaving. Another piece of it is generosity. It's one of Kearney's values, and everyone talks about their values and stuff, but I've really found that people at Kearney give me their time when I ask for it and they need it. I've been on projects where we do work for clients when it's outside of the scope of work that we've already set forward, and we're doing it because it's business goodwill. And even if it's not, we've had a long-standing relationship with that client, and it just makes sense to do the right thing. That's something that I think is getting lost more and more these days in corporate America, and probably globally as well. So that I found really refreshing, and something that distinguished Kearney from the rest of the herd. Another piece of it is just the size. I think there aren't very many consulting firms that are our size, sort of like Goldilocks, not too big, not too small. So, I've had a chance to meet a decent amount of the folks here in the Americas region at Kearney, and I know that I have, tons of friends at Accenture or Deloitte, and those are just monstrous firms, which is a great thing. But it means by virtue you just know fewer people per capita. So I found that the size of the firm was also a really nice thing. Not too intimate and enough variety, but I get to know enough people at the firm that I feel like it's my home and it's sort of my family.
Absolutely. Going off of that, Jen, what do you feel like the culture is like here at Kearney?
The culture. I used to explain this like I don't know. I mean, it might not be the best description of it, but I feel like when, or at least in college, whenever we had like a really hard homework problem, like you never just tackle like the whole problem set or the whole homework assignment by yourself. You always do it in a team, and you always get your best couple of friends to do it with you, and you guys kind of like spitball some answers back and forth. You work through it together, and maybe you get to a really hard problem, and you guys stay up really late at night doing it. But when you finally make that breakthrough and you finally come to the answer, you put it down on paper, you submit it, and you're kind of in that moment, right when you submit your homework, you're like, that was amazing. Like, can't believe we pulled through. Not saying that like that's what consulting is like life or death or doing hard homework problems, but it's that level, I think, of like camaraderie, of really sharing in each other's successes. I think it's definitely true that there's, really no pointy elbows here at Kearney. Like, no one is ever gonna, elbow you aside, kind of step on your shoulder to get ahead or anything like that. Everyone's just really supportive, and you really do feel like even if you're working on a hard client or a hard project or whatever it is, you are doing it kind of like with your best couple of friends. And at the end of the day, no matter how hard it seems in the moment, you'll get through it. You'll submit your problems and you'll submit your homework on time. And we'll talk about the grade later, but there really is that sense of accomplishment with kind of your best buddies at the end of the day.
Got it. So I'm going to start weaving in a few questions that we're receiving from the attendees. So starting with the first one, what kind of mentorship opportunities has Kearney provided, especially in the first year?
I can take a stab at that since Jen, you just went. So there's a formal mentorship program at AT Kearney that's tied into the review process, which I've found to be really positive. To give you a sense of what that is, essentially, you can imagine I show up every 6 months to review, and I've worked with 4+ different managers. So no one of them is really ready to give a holistic review. So to sort of address that problem, each consultant has a mentor, and the mentor leads the review of that consultant, sort of collects, feedback across the board and presents it to a panel. So I found that mentor model of our reviews to be actually really positive. It's nice to not have to be on your own review call and advocate, because I think advocacy is important, as I'm sure all of you review studs know. In terms of informal mentorship, I found tons here at Kearney. A lot of it for me has come through the Proud Network, because that's where I started getting involved in a lot of firm building stuff. So right off the bat, I've met a handful of partners that I'm really close with, and they've helped me through weird interpersonal things on projects with people that might be sort of awkward. They've helped me through reviews when I need advice on, do you think I'm ready for a promotion? Do you think I should try for it? What is your perspective? They've helped me on, oh my God, this is a really stupid question, but how do you get that little thing in the corner of the slides out of the slides? My partner is going to crucify me if he sees it again. So, I mean, you name it, there's someone here at Kearney that I've reached out to for the issue. On the flip side, I mean, I've been here for 2 years, and it doesn't sound like a long time, but there are a handful of folks that have also come to me for advice. It could be folks at the firm that are closeted and wanted to ask for advice on how to come out and when the right time is to come out and what it's like being out. It could be about an Excel problem. How do you insert a column? I forgot the shortcut, right? I mean, it could really be anything, but I think what I've found across the board is that people are really excited to help others and give you their time. I think we all are really invested in each other's success, and it's easy to say that and really hard to implement it. And people really do put in the effort to make each other successful. So informal or formal, I think they come naturally here at Kearney. I think a lot of folks get them through the ERGs, like I mentioned, right? Like Proud or Black at Kearney or the Women's Network. A lot of people start to develop their network and informal mentors in their office. One of my first jobs, probably my hardest job here at Kearney, was pushing the beer cart in the New York office. And I met 50 people on my first day. I don't know if I remembered any of their names, but from that day on, I already knew 50 people. I already had a couple folks that I knew I could go to and ask dumb questions to. So I'd encourage you to come into the office, right? As a new hire, it's a great way to find mentors and just peers that are in similar shoes as you. And then it happens on your projects, right? I mean, my manager, yes, is my manager, but you know, we also are commiserating over not being able to have a Passover Seder the way we normally do. And we're all, you know, talking about that. We're talking about my review. We're talking about personal life and being quarantined and, you know, all the good stuff. So it ends up developing pretty naturally across the board. I think the last piece I'll touch on mentorship is a lot of the clients that you get close with actually can mentor you in many ways. In ways that another consultant can't, right? I'm working at a trucking company right now, and someone that I never would think to be my mentor is my mentor and has been talking to me about how to talk to truck drivers, which you imagine is an easy thing to do, but it's actually quite difficult. So, you know, they come from all over the place. I think Kearney is really set up to invest in your success through mentorship. Yeah, I would just say that there's tons here to get. So if you're open to it, you'll definitely find it.
Great. Well, let's take some questions from the audience. I'd like to address this one to Kate. Someone asked, given that consulting is not a concept taught exclusively at universities, what are ways students can get involved with consulting during their junior or senior year of college?
I assume that your college might have a consulting club. I know mine did, but I'm going to be honest, I wasn't a part of it. I think the best way you can honestly start getting into consulting is just reading some case studies books. That is super helpful, because honestly, you really can't plan to be a consultant. You're going to be thrown into different industries, on different teams, different projects across the state. So you really can't plan for what project you're going to be on and what your focus will be. So I'd say, yeah, like the best thing you can do is start getting into case studies books. That helped me kind of prepare me for what I might handle and see in the field. But yeah, or join a consulting club.
Great. This one is for Jen. Someone wants to know what type of software tools that consultants often use during their projects, like Tableau, Excel. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the two that have already been named, Excel and Tableau, are definitely used quite often. Excel, definitely. PowerPoint, as you heard Andrew earlier, as well, is quite often used. I think some software skills that maybe are not quite the typical, like, you know, hard skills, but as we're finding out now, more than ever, knowing how to use your different teleconferencing tools, scheduling, event scheduling tools, your Outlook, you know, your calendar, mail apps, whatever it is that you use, those are also extremely important, and we're definitely finding that out firsthand right now. But I do want to say that I don't think anyone should get really hung up on, thinking that they need to be like Excel genius or Tableau guru coming into consulting. Definitely have a foundation and be able to, feel comfortable working with them with these different tools. But at the same time, the firm does offer so much training and also resources to get you up to speed and to teach you what you need to learn. Of course, learning on the job is definitely a crucial part of this experience. My first project to my second project, the Excel skills definitely saw like an exponential growth in terms of my like tech savviness or whatever. So don't get too hung up on it, but the major ones are, again, definitely Excel, PowerPoint, Tableau, SQL somewhat, but also all the other everyday, just like general useful productivity tools. I think WebEx, maybe you would or would not have experience in that. Outlook, of course. So I think those are the major ones. Again, don't get too hung up on knowing anything very specific.
Thanks, Jen. Andrew, this is for you. Can you talk about how teamwork is affected now that most people are working remotely from home?
Yes, I can talk about that. Thanks, Linda. So all of AT Kearney, I think globally, if not almost all globally, is work from home. Our offices are closed. So for the most part, our clients are still buying work. Some clients are doubling down because they actually need our help with how to address COVID-19. Others are cash conscious and are halting some work. But for the most part, we're still working. I think we still have the same team structure, right? We're still heavily integrated with clients. So for me, I can just give you a little, day in the life. It means waking up, there's a 9 o'clock stand up with the client, there's a 10 o'clock stand up with just the Kearney team, and then there are meetings throughout the day, scheduled or ad hoc. So I'm probably on video conference looking just like this for at least half of the working day. And then a lot of the rest of it is using things like Slack and MS Teams and Jabber to keep in touch with folks, tons of email traffic, lots of learning curves for how to use like file sharing applications and things like that. So I think everyone is sort of getting used to working from home. I think the reality is it's actually not a huge change for consultants, since we typically work from home or from our home offices on Friday, which is not at the client site. So the client's already used to us not being there. And B, we're used to being at different client sites constantly, right? I mean, someone could call me right after this phone call and tell me that I was going to get staffed on a different project. And if it weren't for this virus, then I would be flying out to a new city on Monday. So we're already equipped to work remotely in the first place. So consultants are actually pretty well positioned to work remotely. Our team structure hasn't changed. Our teaming hasn't changed. I found that the clients are actually having the harder time. For someone like a trucking company where everyone's used to sitting in a big room where 50 people are calling truckers and yelling back and forth at each other, moving to Slack is a little bit harder for them. So I've actually found that a lot of clients are coming to the consultants and asking for advice on how to work remotely, what apps they use that are most successful, things like that. So for the most part, we're doing fine. We're helping our clients through the way more than anything. And things really haven't changed a ton, aside from us, being here in our jammies and in our apartments instead of at the client site. Hope that answers the question.
Okay. Kate, here's a question. So in looking back, do you consider your undergrad major or the classes that you took in college to be relevant to the work you're doing now?
Luckily, right now I'm on a client that is a trucking company. It's transportation. So being supply chain major, it has helped. I've been doing some process map work and a little procurement. So I had some background, but that was lucky. It's not always the case. I was also on another client prior to this where I was doing change communications and culture. So it just totally depends. You could get lucky, but usually starting as a business analyst, you don't necessarily have a say what industry you'll be put on. So you just have to be flexible, honestly. Another thing that was really helpful that I learned in school was Excel, Tableau, and a little bit of coding. I've used Excel a lot so far, a little bit of Tableau. Haven't had to do any coding on my projects, but all of those Microsoft systems are great to learn. They're basics. PowerPoint, learn PowerPoint. Get good at PowerPoint because you'll be doing a lot of it. But yeah, just those basic ones are have been the most helpful so far.
Okay, thank you. We'll try and get through as many of these questions that we can, but we are planning to do a hard stop right at 7 or 6 Central. This one can apply, this definitely applies to Andrew, but perhaps Jen and Kate can weigh in. What are the main differences between Chicago and New York offices?
Well, New York is much better. No. So headquarters is in Chicago, so it's a lot larger of an office. We also have a larger we have staff that are also not consultants, right? All of the most essential people that keep the consultants running. So there are much more of those folks in Chicago. It's a bigger office. There's more of the Americas leadership sits in Chicago. I think New York is awesome. A lot of the new classes end up coming to New York, I think, because it's glamorous or that they've heard that I'm there. I think that the office cultures in both of those two cities are actually pretty similar. There's a good Friday office culture. People actually show up to the office and come in, hang out for happy hour and talk to each other. I think if you're making the decision about go to New York versus Chicago, I would not anchor on Kearney metrics. I would choose the city that you like more, just because I think the office you'd be well served with either of those two offices. And Jen and Kate, feel free to agree or disagree with me there.
No, I definitely agree. I think you did justice to the question. I'm gonna be honest, I haven't been to the New York office personally, which is definitely a crime because I've been here for so long. I feel like I should have by this point. But totally agree with Andrew. I think the culture of both offices are pretty similar. I think maybe it depends a little bit about the practice that you're aligned to. I know that there may be more strategic ops, like the practice I'm in, more leadership sitting in Chicago. May or may not be true. That might just be a perception of mine. But I think either way, both offices are great.
Okay, thank you.
Real quick, before we move off of that, just so folks in the audience know, if you've indicated an office preference and you would like to change that office preference, you're welcome to do that. It has very minimal bearing on your hiring. I think I at first was offered out of Boston and then switched to New York post offer letter, and they just sent me a new one. So we're hiring for the entire U.S. So don't worry if you'd like to change that. The other piece there is the same sort of goes for specialization. If you'd like to be a generalist, you can join as a generalist. That that cross with office doesn't really matter. Specialization at Kearney typically doesn't happen until the late associate, early manager, which both happen after analyst titles. So you have some time there to work out those kinks before you make any decisions.
Thank you, Andrew. And perhaps, Andrew, one more question for you. Someone wants to know what's our staffing model? What's that like for analysts?
Yep. So most analysts join Kearney in the general practice, right? Which means you're not aligned to one of the industries in the checkerboard that you saw earlier, or one of the functions in the bullet points below. What that means is we have a national staffing model. which means that anyone in the USA can get staffed on projects in the USA. Typically, we try to avoid people flying coast to coast and having horrible travel schedules because we're all humans and we know what that's like. So for the most part, if you're on the East Coast, they try to keep you east of the Mississippi and whatnot. Typically, what the staffing process looks like is, I remember I joined, I had a conversation with my staffing manager about the things that I was interested in, things I wanted to try, things I wanted to avoid, and other preferences like how much I wanted to travel, if I wanted to travel a long distance, things like that. Then you get to work with your staffing manager to figure out sort of what the best projects are. Typically, a staffing manager will come to you and be like, okay, I found this one. It's with a trucking company. It's for this long. Why don't you go talk to the folks on that project and get a sense for what it's like. So that's how it typically happens. It changes a little bit once you align to a practice. Tactically, you then fall onto that practice's P&L, and so they manage your utilization a little bit more tightly. They put you on more proposal work for that practice and whatnot. But for most of you, you'll be a generalist, which means that you have a say in sort of telling your staffing manager, hey, here's what I want to do, here's what I'm interested in. Now, the reality of the situation is that's sort of that's what is very prescriptive, but you actually have a heavy hand in your staffing if you would like it. I've been staffed by people I've worked with previously for every single engagement except my first engagement. So that means I already knew the folks. When I was rolling off of my previous engagement, I started calling around, hey, are you guys staffing up any projects? Are there anything interesting that you think I could be a fit for? And then I sort of self-identified the projects that I'd like to get staffed up. Then I got to go to my staffing manager and say, hey, I really want to work for trucking company A. Do you think you can make it work? And then you can sort of have a heavier hand in it that way if you'd like to be more proactive. So a long answer for a national staffing model that's directed.
Okay, one more question, and this could be to any of the panelists. What have been the major shifts from Kearney's global brand change from AT Kearney to Kearney? Andrew?
I guess I could. Oh.
Go ahead.
So I was going to say I can take maybe a first stab at this. Maybe an aspect of our global brand change I think has really been affecting me personally, or at least I see more on the day-to-day aspect, is that we are trying to be more direct with our communication, and that's exhibited both in our overall branding and our communication, externally, but also with our clients and with our PowerPoint format. Long gone are kind of these really verbose, text-heavy slides or PowerPoint pages that we used to put together. Now we really want to focus on what is the core message, what is the essential message that we're trying to get across, really focus in on that headline, and try to filter out the extra noise. So that's something that I've at least been able to see very personally, and I've had some trouble with it as well because I'm so used to filling in so much extra text on a page. What if they don't understand what I'm trying to say? I gotta add in another line to make it more clear. But that's definitely something that I've at least experienced on a day-to-day myself. Love to hear Kate and Andrew's take on it as well, though.
I think one thing with our brand rebranding that we've really been focusing on is our people. I think, like we've said throughout this interview, that our people are so important to us, and we really value those relationships we have, not only with our clients, but with each other. And I think we've kind of really been focusing on showing that to our clients, not only with within our PowerPoints and the pictures that we're sharing with them, but like you said, in social media, in any other, our website or any other platforms that we're on, just really focusing on who we are truly, and that's just people who care about other people.
Yeah, that's great, Jen. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jen.
No, sorry, I just wanted to jump in and just mention that when Kate is saying that like all of our photos are genuine, it's that all of our photos that we use now are all crowdsourced from Kearney employees and our colleagues. So we kind of did away with the whole stock photo, practice. So I think, again, echoing Kate, trying to be genuine, show exactly who we are, and showcase our people. Sorry, Andrew, go ahead.
Yeah, no worries, Jen. No, I mean, we have like these 5 values that I could list off, but I think the overarching theme that I kind of there is authenticity. It's something that I have been practicing in my own, work culture, the one that I create for myself, right? About bringing your whole self to work, and I think Kearney has been trying to encourage that as much as possible, and really bring that to the center of who we are. It's about the people, right? It's about who we are, who actually shows up to the client site and is talking to you, is now on your team. And so I think the rebrand has really tried to refocus everything that we are back on our most valuable asset, which is our people. Not to mention purple is an awesome color. So.
Yes, it is. Well, we had a lot of great questions from the audience, and unfortunately, we weren't able to get through them all. So if we were not able to get to your question, feel free to email it to careers.ug@kearney.com. So this concludes our Consulting 101 webinar. I hope you found the session informative and helpful as you think about your futures. So thanks again, and enjoy the rest of your evening, everyone.
Thanks, folks. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.